On November 10th, 1973, a Dutch woman would wake up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom. That night, she would peek out the window and see one of the strangest sights she would ever see. Several strange entities sweeping the road. While the case surely has the feeling of a vivid dream, or one person's imagination gone wild, two other cases around this time would be incredibly similar to her story. In this episode, we will examine the alien encounter of Ann Delphijn, an incident that would later be labeled as the Street Sweepers of Uden. Founded in the 12th century, Uden is a town located in the province of North Brabant in the Netherlands. The small town has a rich history and has grown from a small rural town with incredible dark cherries to an important economic center in the country. Still, in 1973, one of the oddest alien encounters in the history of the Netherlands would occur. At 2:15 in the morning, Anne woke up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom. Anne's bathroom was located on the far side of the home, and as such, Anne had to walk across the house to use it. She would pass by a set of windows on the front of the house, and out of the corner of her eye, Anne would spot something white out in the street. Being half asleep, she didn't think too much of it and used the restroom. After using the bathroom, Anne, who was now more awake, proceeded to walk back and once more saw the white. This time, though, she would stop. Anne looked out onto the street and spotted three figures wearing white robes. They were around 3 feet tall and appeared to be using some sort of device to sweep the street. Anne could see the beings' feet, which were pretty big for their size. What was probably most strange, though, was the beings were walking in the same direction, but they weren't picking up their feet as they moved. It's like they were rolling slowly, or appeared to be waddling. The beings wore a white hood, which obscured their face and wasn't tall or pointy, but the hood split off into 2 points that hung down from the back on either side, similar to a jester's hat. The beings continued to shuffle down the road, and Anne continued to watch them. The beings had a belt that had some different tools on it. It was a full moon that night, and Anne could make out the devices as they reflected off the moonlight. Still, the most odd detail of this case probably has to do with the devices that they held out in front. The beings all appeared to be carrying an object that looked like a metal detector or a vacuum roller brush. The beings were rolling the device back and forth, and to the left and to the right. Anne would continue to watch the beings for around 5 minutes. During this time, she thought about waking up her husband, but her spouse had been having heart problems, and she decided that it might be too much for him. After around 5 minutes, one of the beings would turn around and look directly at Anne. Anne couldn't see its face, but she had been made. The being turned around and communicated to the other something. A few moments later, the 3 humanoids quickly waddled away and disappeared behind a school. Anne, who was in shock, would continue to watch the street for several minutes, believing they might come back. After they didn't, Anne would decide to head back to bed. As she came in the bedroom, her husband appeared to be groggy and waking up. She was getting ready to tell him what she saw when she would look out the window and see a red light. Anne estimated the red ball of light to be about 130 feet away and around 7 feet across. She looked at it, but it was so bright after a few seconds she had to look away. She then looked and said something to her half-asleep husband. She turned back around and the red ball of light was gone. She would proceed to tell him the story, and he would believe her, although he didn't see anything. Surprisingly, that night, Anne was able to fall back asleep. The next day, she would head to the police station and file a report. It's not clear if the police didn't believe her, or they just didn't care. But for an entire year, Anne wouldn't hear anything. After not hearing anything from the police, Anne decided to talk with her friend Bob Moyen about it. Bob would soon tell his son Edmund, who was a UFO enthusiast. Edmund would decide after hearing it that he should relay the story to the UFO community. As such, he wrote a letter to the Center of UFO Studies. In the organization, ufologists David Webb and Ted Blocher would take an interest in the case. Both men contributed significantly to the field of ufology. Ted Blocher who was also an actor and singer, compiled the results of a historical study that documented all the reported UFO sightings during the 1947 flying disc craze. This study was released in 1967. Webb was an experienced UFO researcher and author as well. He would include Ann's story in his book, 1973, Year of the Humanoids, published in 1976. Still, the man probably most responsible for popularizing Ann's story was a Dutchman named Douwe Boska. Boska spent a year working for the organization, and after some time would return back home in 1978 to the Netherlands. Boska was very interested in Ann's case and would interview her several times. He would find Ann to be extremely credible and not one trying to seek fame or fortune. In fact, she had told very few the story in the past 5 years. While Ann did not seek the fame, it would soon come. Boska would begin telling UFO organizations in the Netherlands, like Nobova, and soon the story hit the press. Once it started, the story spread like wildfire around the country. Ann did do several interviews, but did so under the pseudonym Saskia Vermeulen. The journalist came to the interview expecting to find a good laugh, but all of them walked out believing Ann and her story. While Ann's account seems extremely bizarre and weird, the fact is, it really isn't. In fact, the next month there would be 2 similar cases that occurred involving being sweeping or using a metal detecting like device on the street. The first occurred in the same month as Ann's, in 1974 in November. This story comes from the 1975 book, The Process of Flying Saucers, which was written by Claude McDuff. In this case, 4 Canadian women were driving from Sorel-Tracy to Montreal for a night out on the town. As the women were heading into the city, they would spot an orb or ball of light over their heads. It would follow them for several miles over their car, and eventually a pink mist would come out of nowhere. Visibility was limited, and the women drove through the mist for what they perceived to be a matter of minutes. It's not clear if they experienced missing time, but what is clear is when they left the pink mist, a strange being was shuffling down the road with some sort of street sweeping device. In addition, the women would allege to see 3 men in black standing by a car on the side of the street. 1 month after Ann's encounter, another incident would occur. This occurred only 157 kilometers in the town of Vilvoorde. This case we covered on this channel not too long ago. The story is as follows. On December 19th, 1973, a 28-year-old Belgian man awoke in the middle of the night to use the bathroom. After using it, he began walking back to his bedroom through the kitchen when suddenly he spotted a green glow coming through the curtains. The half-asleep man decided to peer through the window, and what he saw left him stunned. There was a 3-foot-tall humanoid walking around in his garden. The entity's outfit was different than what Ann described, as it was not wearing a robe. The outfit consisted of a one-piece tight-fitted suit that was emitting a greenish glow. It was wearing a transparent helmet, and a tube ran from the helmet to something on its back. Whatever was on its back was pretty big, covering the majority of it. However, just like Ann's case, the being appeared to be using some sort of metal detecting or sweeping device. As the man watched, the being placed 1 foot flat on a wall and began walking up it. The odd sight was truly unbelievable, as its gait stayed the same and the position of the metal detector device was the same as well. The being crested the wall, and soon a white light flashed beyond it. It seems that we have 2 cases with some similarities, and this is just from the same year. It should be pointed out too that Ann's case wasn't widely known at the time, so these don't seem to be copycat stories. Is this case, though, considered credible? As the case has become more popular over the years, so has the number of people who have examined it and scrutinized it. One individual that has studied the case has proposed an interesting theory that is worth looking at. In 1984, an amateur ufologist sent a letter to the Journal of Study Group for Foreign Air Phenomena proposing what he believed happened that night. The researcher's name was Mr. Moss, and his theory is quite popular with skeptics. Moss, who who alleged to study the case extensively, stated that he used to live on a street similar to what Ann lived on. More specifically, the road was covered in stone and had been recently paved. Moss goes on to state that one night he was looking out his window when he would see several men exit their vehicle and begin using some sort of metal detecting device on the street. A curious Moss headed outside and asked what they were doing. One of the men informed him they were looking for gas leaks under the road. Why were they doing it at night? Less gas being used meant the pressure in the pipes was lower, and a gas leak could be detected easier. In addition, very little traffic at night as well. After Moss's letter, the story seemed like it had been solved. Or had it? Nobova, the UFO organization, took the theory seriously and even reached out to Obergas, the energy provider at the time. However, they didn't keep records that far back. Others weighed in as well. Bram Rosa, a UFO researcher, stated he didn't believe gas sweepers were widely used in 1973, and it wasn't done at night. While Moss's theory is an interesting one, it doesn't address several key questions. First, why were the individuals so short? Second, why would the gas sweepers be wearing robes? Also, how does he explain the red orb Ann saw? Why were they shuffling as if their feet had not lifted off the ground? It should be pointed out too, Ann watched them for around 5 minutes, and this just wasn't a quick glance. The second theory on this case is, of course, Ann saw some type of extraterrestrials, possibly collecting samples. In sum, it seems this is a credible case. Ann appeared to be a highly reputable witness by all who spoke with her, even the media. In addition, she even used an alias, which showed she wasn't in it for the fame. There are also at least 2 additional cases with entities using these sweeping devices for whatever reason. Thanks for watching, and please let us know your thoughts on this case, and if you know any cases involving these odd sweeping devices.